Have you ever felt mentally exhausted before even making a simple decision? Have you spent hours or even days analyzing every possibility, replaying old conversations, planning every detail, only to realize you never acted at all? If that feels familiar, you're not alone. But you need to hear this clearly. This is not normal. It's a symptom, a sign that you've fallen into a cognitive trap so subtle. It disguises itself as intelligence. Because maybe you've told yourself, I'm just being careful. That's wisdom. That's maturity. That's responsibility. But what if the truth is the opposite? What if overthinking is exactly what's holding you back? What if all that analysis is not strength, but avoidance? An elegant defense mechanism designed by your own mind to keep you safe from action, from risk, from exposure, from living. Music. According to Daniel Kahneman, the problem is not thinking, it's thinking the wrong way. He showed that the human mind operates through two systems. System 1, fast, automatic, intuitive, and System 2, slow, deliberate, analytical. Now here's what most people don't realize. Overthinkers live in System 2, even when they shouldn't. They try to solve simple decisions with complex analysis, and that's where everything begins to break, because the result is not better decisions, it's worse ones. More doubt, more hesitation, more suffering, and a life stuck in loops, endless loops. The mind starts creating scenarios. What if this goes wrong? What if I regret it? What if there's a better option? And suddenly, you are no longer deciding. You are negotiating with fear, trying to predict every outcome as if certainty were possible. But it isn't, and it never was. So you keep thinking, hoping that one more layer of analysis will finally give you clarity. But it doesn't. It only delays. And while you delay, you drain yourself. Music. Because thinking costs energy. Real energy. Your brain has a limit, an attention budget. And every time you spend it on unnecessary analysis, you leave nothing for action. Nothing for creation, nothing for movement, only fatigue, only frustration, and ironically, no decision at all. So in this video, you'll understand why this happens, why you feel stuck, and most importantly, how to break free. Because there is a way out, but it requires something you may have forgotten: to trust yourself, to act without guarantees, to accept uncertainty as part of the path. So if you feel trapped inside your own mind, stay with me, because this won't feel comfortable, but it might be the beginning of your freedom. Music. You believe you are in control, that your thoughts are yours, that every decision comes from conscious intention, but that too is an illusion. Your mind is not a straight line. It's a battlefield, and inside it, two systems are constantly competing. System 1, fast, intuitive, automatic. It's the voice of instinct, the reaction before you think, the silent recognition of patterns. It's what makes you brake the car before you understand the danger, what makes you sense a lie, without knowing why. It is quick, efficient, and more often than not, right. Then comes System 2, slow, analytical, deliberate. This is the system you activate when things get complex, when you calculate, plan, force, focus. But here's the part no one tells you. System 2 is lazy. It doesn't engage unless it has to, and when it does, it consumes a massive amount of energy. And this is where overthinking begins. Because when you live in constant analysis, you are forcing your brain into high consumption mode all the time. You are using System 2 to solve problems that System 1 could handle in seconds, naturally, effortlessly. Imagine this. You have two routes to work. One you know well, safe, familiar, reliable. The other, slightly shorter, but uncertain. Instead of choosing instinctively, you start thinking. What if there's traffic? What if it rains? What if I'm late? What if today is different? Minutes pass, then more. And in the end, you leave late, stressed, and still unsure if you made the right decision. That's overthinking. Not intelligence, not wisdom, just paralysis. Overthinkers become addicted. Addicted to analysis, to control, to the illusion that more thinking means more wisdom. So they use System 2 for everything, even the smallest decisions. What to say, what to choose, what to do next. Everything becomes a problem to solve. But this is where the danger begins, because as Daniel Kahneman showed, when you overload your mind, you don't become clearer. You become distorted. You start seeing risks where none exist. You begin to doubt what was once obvious. And slowly, you disconnect from your intuition. And there's something even deeper. The more time you spend in your head, the stronger the cycle becomes. Fear feeds analysis. Analysis feeds doubt. Doubt feeds more fear. And just like that, System 2 stops being your ally and becomes your tyrant, demanding certainty, demanding guarantees, demanding proof in a world where none of those things exist. Music. So the question is, why? Why does this happen? Why do we believe that overthinking gives us control, when in reality it makes us more vulnerable? The answer is uncomfortable, because it's built on a lie, a quiet lie your mind repeats every single day. You believe that thinking more deeply brings you closer to the truth, that if you analyze everything, consider every angle, simulate every outcome, you will protect yourself from mistakes, from regret, from failure. But that belief is exactly what keeps you stuck, because what you call deep thinking is often just fear, wearing the mask of intelligence. And again, Daniel Kahneman exposed this clearly. The more time you spend analyzing something simple, the more likely you are to get lost. Lost in details that don't matter. Lost in scenarios that don't exist. Lost in your own insecurities. Overthinking doesn't lead you to truth. It leads you into a maze. And the longer you stay there, the harder it becomes to find the exit. So ask yourself honestly, when you overthink, what are you really doing? Are you searching for clarity? Or are you trying to eliminate uncertainty? Are you looking for an answer or a guarantee? Because those are not the same, and one of them doesn't exist. Music. The mind, especially System 2, has a dangerous tendency. It believes it can predict the future, that with enough thinking, you can anticipate every possible outcome. But that is an illusion. A convincing one, but still an illusion, because what actually happens is very different. You begin to create alternate realities. What if this goes wrong? What if they reject me? What if I fail? What if? And slowly, you stop responding to reality and start reacting to imagination. The present moment disappears, replaced by speculation. You enter a state of hyper-rationalization, where everything feels logical, but nothing is real. Your mind builds arguments, justifications, stories that make your fear seem rational, and this is where it becomes dangerous, because now, you are not thinking clearly. You are thinking defensively, protecting yourself from things that haven't even happened. And at that moment, another force enters the game, subtle, invisible, but extremely powerful. Confirmation bias. The tendency of your mind to search for evidence, not of truth, but of what you already fear. There is another mechanism at play, subtle, but extremely powerful. A concept also revealed by Daniel Kahneman, confirmation bias. And this is where things become dangerous, because when you overthink, you're not becoming more rational, you are becoming selective. You are not searching for truth, you are searching for evidence to support what you already feel. If you are afraid, your thoughts will find reasons to justify that fear. If you fear making a mistake, your analysis will tell you not to act. If you fear judgment, your mind will convince you that silence is safer. And step by step, you begin to build your own prison, not with walls, but with logic, false logic, carefully constructed arguments that make your paralysis feel intelligent. And that's why it's addictive. Because thinking deeply feels like progress. You feel productive, you feel prepared, you feel responsible, but you're not. You are postponing life, replacing action with simulation, and the cost is higher than you think. Music. Your mind becomes heavy, slower, disconnected. You drift away from the present moment, from real opportunities, from real experiences, from real people, all in the name of safety, a safety that never arrives. Because deep down, you are not looking for clarity, you are looking for control. And here is the truth almost no one dares to say. The more you try to control everything with thought, the more control you lose over your life. And that leads us to something even deeper, because overthinking does not only deceive you, it drains you biologically, silently, relentlessly. It extracts a price, paid in energy, in courage, in action, and most people don't even realize it. Music. Have you ever woken up tired, even after a full night of sleep? Have you ever faced a simple decision and felt as if it weighed tons? That's not laziness. That's not weakness. That is cognitive exhaustion, and it may be the most invisible enemy in your life. Because as Daniel Kahneman demonstrated, System 2, the system of analysis, of effort, of conscious thinking, is expensive. It consumes energy, a lot of it. It requires focus, attention, mental effort. And here's the problem. Your mind does not have unlimited energy. It works on a budget, a limited one, and every time you overthink, you spend from that budget, again and again and again, until there's nothing left. You enter deficit, mental deficit. And when that happens, everything slows down. Decisions become harder. Action feels impossible. Even simple things feel overwhelming because your system is exhausted. Music. Overthinking is not just a habit. It is overuse, overload, misuse of a system that was never designed to run constantly. It's like keeping a car engine running at full speed while standing still. The engine heats up, fuel burns, parts wear out, but you don't move, not even an inch, and eventually, something breaks. Your mind is spinning. Endless simulations, endless scenarios, endless possibilities. But here's the truth, you're not deciding, you're not moving, you're not creating anything, you're just exhausting yourself. Slowly, silently. Music. This constant mental overactivity creates something very real, a state that Daniel Kahneman helped bring into focus: ego depletion. The point where your ability to regulate yourself begins to fail, where even the simplest actions, replying to a message, getting out of the house, deciding what to eat, feel heavy, too heavy, and you start to delay, to avoid, to procrastinate, not because you're lazy, but because you're drained, mentally depleted. Music. And it doesn't stop there, because this fatigue changes the way you see the world. It distorts your perception of risk. When your mind is tired, everything feels dangerous, everything feels uncertain, so you hesitate, you postpone, you ignore decisions, not out of wisdom, but out of exhaustion, a fatigue you mistake for caution. Music. And then, something even more dangerous happens. The more exhausted you become, the more you lose control of both systems. System 2, the one that gives you clarity, starts to fail. And System 1, the one that should guide you intuitively, becomes distorted. You become impulsive, reactive, emotional, not precise, not clear, not grounded, and just like that, you lose the best of both worlds. No clear thinking, no reliable intuition, only noise, music, and the cycle tightens. Overthinking creates exhaustion. Exhaustion creates avoidance. Avoidance creates anxiety. Anxiety creates more thinking. And so you loop again and again and again, a mental prison that consumes your days, drains your energy, and disconnects you from real action, from real life. Music. But here's the cruelest part. You believe you're in control. You believe you're being responsible. You believe you're waiting for the right moment, but you're not. You're sinking into an illusion, a slow collapse that happens from the inside. And what keeps this illusion alive? A single thought, quiet, convincing, dangerous. If I just think a little more, I'll figure it out. I'll predict the outcome. I'll avoid the mistake. It sounds harmless, logical, responsible, but it's not. It's the chain that keeps you stuck because it feeds the belief that thinking more will save you. Music. So now, let's face it directly. Do you believe that if you think more, plan better, calculate everything, then everything will go right? That you will avoid mistakes, avoid pain, avoid uncertainty, because that is the myth, the core illusion behind overthinking. The belief that more analysis means more control. But the truth is harder than that. That control never existed. And as Daniel Kahneman made clear, the more you try to control the future with thought, the deeper you fall into cognitive traps. Traps that distort reality. Traps that convince you that you are preparing when you are actually hiding. Because what you call planning is often something else, a psychological shield, a way to cope with the discomfort of uncertainty. And here is the central point. Your mind is spinning. Endless simulations, endless scenarios, endless possibilities. But here's the truth, you're not deciding, you're not moving, you're not creating anything, you're just exhausting yourself. Slowly, silently. Music. This constant mental overactivity creates something very real, a state that Daniel Kahneman helped bring into focus: ego depletion. The point where your ability to regulate yourself begins to fail, where even the simplest actions, replying to a message, getting out of the house, deciding what to eat, feel heavy, too heavy, and you start to delay, to avoid, to procrastinate, not because you're lazy, but because you're drained, mentally depleted. Music. And it doesn't stop there, because this fatigue changes the way you see the world. It distorts your perception of risk. When your mind is tired, everything feels dangerous, everything feels uncertain, so you hesitate, you postpone, you ignore decisions, not out of wisdom, but out of exhaustion, a fatigue you mistake for caution. Music. And then, something even more dangerous happens. The more exhausted you become, the more you lose control of both systems. System 2, the one that gives you clarity, starts to fail. And System 1, the one that should guide you intuitively, becomes distorted. You become impulsive, reactive, emotional, not precise, not clear, not grounded, and just like that, you lose the best of both worlds. No clear thinking, no reliable intuition, only noise, music, and the cycle tightens. Overthinking creates exhaustion. Exhaustion creates avoidance. Avoidance creates anxiety. Anxiety creates more thinking. And so you loop again and again and again, a mental prison that consumes your days, drains your energy, and disconnects you from real action, from real life. Music. But here's the cruelest part. You believe you're in control. You believe you're being responsible. You believe you're waiting for the right moment, but you're not. You're sinking into an illusion, a slow collapse that happens from the inside. And what keeps this illusion alive? A single thought, quiet, convincing, dangerous. If I just think a little more, I'll figure it out. I'll predict the outcome. I'll avoid the mistake. It sounds harmless, logical, responsible, but it's not. It's the chain that keeps you stuck because it feeds the belief that thinking more will save you. Music. So now, let's face it directly. Do you believe that if you think more, plan better, calculate everything, then everything will go right? That you will avoid mistakes, avoid pain, avoid uncertainty, because that is the myth, the core illusion behind overthinking. The belief that more analysis means more control. But the truth is harder than that. That control never existed. And as Daniel Kahneman made clear, the more you try to control the future with thought, the deeper you fall into cognitive traps. Traps that distort reality. Traps that convince you that you are preparing when you are actually hiding. Because what you call planning is often something else, a psychological shield, a way to cope with the discomfort of uncertainty. And here is the central point. The mind hates uncertainty. The unknown triggers something deep, a biological alarm, a signal that says, be careful, control this, figure it out. And in response, you start thinking, analyzing, planning, trying to reduce the discomfort, trying to feel safe. But here's what most people forget, or choose to ignore. Most of what determines your life is not under your control. You can plan the perfect moment, and it still falls apart. You can organize every detail and still lose everything. You can analyze every path and still regret the one you choose, because life does not follow your logic. It does not obey your calculations, and it never will. Music. The overthinker is like someone standing in the wind, trying to predict its direction by drawing lines in the sand, carefully, precisely, endlessly. But the wind doesn't care. It shifts, it changes, it moves, and while you are calculating, you are not moving at all. You are frozen, stuck, watching life pass while you try to understand it. Music. And there is another trap, one that feels productive, but keeps you stuck. Endless information. You tell yourself, I just need one more detail, one more opinion, one more comparison. Then I'll decide, then I'll act. But that one more never ends. Because it was never about clarity. It was about fear. And fear will always give you a reason to wait. Just a little longer. Music. And as Daniel Kahneman made clear, when you try to eliminate risk through thinking, you create a new risk, a deeper one, permanent paralysis. The obsession with being right stops you from acting on what is enough. And here's the truth. The world does not reward those who know everything. It rewards those who act, those who step forward, those who risk, those who fail, learn, and adapt. You can spend your life trying to predict everything, or you can accept the most liberating truth of all. There is no perfect decision, only a decision made. And once you truly understand that, something shifts. Something inside you relaxes. You stop trying to control the uncontrollable. You stop chasing certainty. You stop fighting reality. And in that space, a different kind of action appears. Lighter, faster, more natural, more aligned with who you are. Music. You begin to trust again. Not the outcome, but yourself. And that changes everything. And now, we arrive at the real question. Not why you overthink, but how to stop. Because understanding the problem is only the beginning. Freedom comes from action. So if you're asking, what do I do now? How do I break this cycle? That is the right question. Music. Because escaping overthinking is not about thinking less. It's about thinking better. It's about using your mind instead of being controlled by it. And this is where the work of Daniel Kahneman becomes practical, actionable, liberating. Music. The first step is simple. Recognize the type of decision you are facing. Not every decision deserves deep analysis. Ask yourself, does this have serious, irreversible consequences? If the answer is no, step back. Let intuition act. Let System 1 lead. Save your mental energy for what truly matters. Because if you treat every small choice like a life or death decision, you will burn out. And eventually, you will stop deciding altogether. Music. The second tool is perspective. A simple question, how will I feel about this decision? In 10 minutes? In 10 months? In 10 years? This breaks the illusion of urgency. It pulls you out of emotional noise and shows you that most things you stress about today won't matter tomorrow. And when you see that, you regain clarity. Music. The third is discipline. Set a limit before you begin. I will research for 2 days. I will consider 3 opinions. And then I decide. No extensions. No, just one more. Because more information does not always mean better decisions. Sometimes it just feeds anxiety and strengthens indecision. Learn to act without knowing everything, because no one ever does. Music. The fourth is confronting fear directly. Instead of imagining every possible future, do the opposite. Assume you acted, assume it failed. Now ask, what went wrong? If the answer is unclear or the failure is reversible, you already have your answer. Act, because what's stopping you is not reality. It's imagination, music. And finally, trust your experience. You have lived, you have learned, you have adapted, and your intuition is not random. It is memory, pattern recognition, wisdom compressed through experience. As Daniel Kahneman acknowledged, in familiar situations, your intuition is often more accurate than endless analysis. So if something feels right, pay attention. If something feels wrong, don't ignore it. That signal is not weakness, it's intelligence, music. These tools won't eliminate doubt. They won't make you perfect. They won't guarantee success, but they give you something far more valuable: control, not over the world, but over yourself. The ability to decide, to act, to move forward, even without certainty, because in the end, those who wait for certainty never move, and those who never move never live. Music. And here is the most important truth of all. You don't need to trust your mind less. You need to learn when to use it and when to let go. And this is where everything comes together. Because even now, there is one question still holding you back. What if I make a mistake? What if I fail? And this final doubt is what traps most people. Not lack of intelligence, not lack of opportunity, but fear of being wrong. So let's face it directly. You spent your life believing that being careful means thinking more, that maturity means analyzing everything, that intelligence means minimizing risk. But as Daniel Kahneman showed, there is something more powerful than analysis: the courage to decide. And here is the truth, the one you've been avoiding. You will never have enough certainty. Never. You will never have complete information. You will never have guarantees, because life is unpredictable. And that's not a flaw, that's reality. Music. And that is exactly why action matters. Not because it guarantees success, but because it frees you from doubt, from hesitation, from that endless loop inside your head. The freedom you're searching for is not in thinking more. It's in accepting that mistakes will happen, that regret will exist, that discomfort is part of a real life, a lived life. Music. And here's the hidden truth. Confidence does not come before action. It comes after. It is built through movement, through risk, through doing, not thinking. Because waiting to feel ready is like waiting to learn how to swim without ever entering the water. It will never happen. Music. But the moment you decide, even something small, and you act, something shifts. You reclaim power. You send a signal to your mind: I move, I decide, I act. And that signal changes everything. You stop being a spectator and become the author of your own life. Music. As Daniel Kahneman reminded, System 2 should be used wisely, not constantly, not obsessively. Knowing when to stop thinking and start acting is one of the rarest skills a human can develop. And when you master it, something extraordinary happens. You no longer need certainty. You only need direction. Music. So stop waiting. Stop searching for guarantees. Stop asking for permission. Act, even with fear, even with doubt, because real strength is not found in eliminating uncertainty, but in walking through it. Music. Now, be honest. What decision have you been avoiding? What step have you delayed again and again and again? Name it. Because the moment you name it, you begin to break the cycle. Music. And if this message stayed with you, share it. Someone close to you may be trapped in the same loop, and this might be what they need to hear. Stay with this and keep moving. I'll see you in the next one.